Hello there, as promised, we've got a Goodwill game going on here at Waikiki. You'll have watched hopefully the practice fields video I did earlier on today. I had a quick look at each of the holes, hopefully avoided some of the major pitfalls. To be honest, I've already recorded this video and I was talking over the top of it, and the mix of my voice and the game audio was terrible. You could hardly hear us over the top of this stupid nice shot. Nice approach in Golfstar, and the crowd cheering, which they did occasionally. So I'm just voicing over this again now, so you can actually hear what I'm saying and what's going on. So you'll see me predict the future on a couple of occasions. You'll see one big disaster hole, as you normally get at Waikiki. So yeah, let's see how we get on. So we have kind of nightly guild games, so I just requested if we could do a Waikiki one. The guy who set it up, Paul, has obviously accommodated that, so thank you, Paul. So off we go. I think there's sort of 5 of us, so we should see some interesting stuff here. We usually do. So on the first, you'll remember on the practice fields I played a high shot, I hit the tree, I came up a little bit short, ended up in the bunker. So the plan is here, I'm going to hit it a bit harder, more than likely go the other way and go too far, but let's see what happens. As I mentioned on the practice fields, it's very much a par hole, this one. A birdie's a great result. I've had the odd one, but very rarely. So you just really damage limitation, want to try and get it close, put or chip to where the ball's pretty much dead, and just nail the par. Slice of luck, yeah, birdie would be great, but don't expect to see many birdies on this hole. So I'm aiming it a little bit again harder than I did in the practice video, and the result of that is, we'll see now. Yeah, just a little bit too hard. It wasn't actually far off that, a couple of yards shorter. That would have hit that tree. Probably not even held the green though. It would have landed on the green, and you'll see the slope coming down towards us there. That's gonna roll off 9 times out of 10. So bunker shot goes close, so as expected we'll be getting a par here, as have Paul and Martin, and David Moriarty still on the tee. Oh, he's off the tee now. Where's he gone? There he is. He's in the bunker there at the front, so you'd expect him to get up and down from here. So it should be pars all round on the first hole. Yeah, that's a fairly safe-ish position. You'll notice the perfect approach, which is the new addition in the update. Never used to have, we'd have a nice approach which was in 5.4 yards, which would be worth 2 points in the past. What they've got now is the nice approach in the same region is now 3 points. If you're within, it's around 2.1, although I have seen them given a 2.2. You get a perfect approach, and anywhere between 5.4 and it's around about 9 or 10 yards, it's a good approach, for which you get 2 points, I believe. So they're shaking the point system up a little bit, which is a good thing. But I'll talk about that more in another video. We'll concentrate on what's going on here now. So I'm aiming obviously way off to the right with that 4-yard crosswind. Something you'll notice, I had a message on the previous video earlier on today asking for information about kind of the calculations I use for wind, etc. It's a really good question, and it's a really difficult one to answer. Reason being, I used to have a system. I used to have that's a good shot. Let's see if I can put this in for eagle. Should do. That's a very flat putt, so just got to hit it straight and hard enough, really. Yeah, that's a good start then. So par and then an eagle. We couldn't have expected much better than that. But yeah, when you're driving 300 yards, it's a lot easier to have a system because there's not so much difference between the clubs. The ball's not in the air so long. It's not affected by the wind half as much. quite literally half as much, because when you're driving at 600 yards, which is double the amount, you'd think everything would double, but it doesn't really work like that, because you play in different clubs, and the clubs kind of profiles change so much when you throw so much stats at them. For example, the 5-wood, a 5-wood power shot, it'll go so high it's almost like a sky shot, so it'll be up in the air for ages, and if you've got a big crosswind, it's going to be massively affected. If you're hitting it into a headwind, it's going to really drop dead. Play the same distance with a 2 or a 1-wood, and the ball will go, the trajectory will be so much different. So you can't just say, okay, 400 yards, let's adjust 20 yards to the right or whatever. It's a lot more complicated than that. Having said that, it's something that I do need to revisit myself. I've made lots of, especially since the big jump up in stats recently, you throw an extra 30, 40 yards on a shot, and then all of a sudden everything's in the air longer, the wind's affecting it a lot more. So I really need to get my head around it as well. So I'll probably do a video on that, maybe on the practice fields, where you can kind of set the distance, so we can get something a bit more scientific going on. Anyway, this one, on the practice, I hit the tree with a 2-wood, and I got through with a 3-wood. Now I'm going to predict the future here, and I'm going to tell you I don't get through with this 3-wood and have a bit of a disaster this hole. Reason being, pretty much what I've talked about before. If I have a look, it wasn't far from getting over the top of that leaf, I don't think. That's all it is, just a leaf. But it didn't make it. So despite the fact I hit a 3-wood before with 1,000 less stats, it was a 3-wood power shot. I hit a standard 3-wood there, and that was really nowhere near the same sort of shot. Well, it might have been quite near, but not near enough. You'll see me struggling to get out of this position. I thought I might have got a stroke of luck there and ended up on the fairway, but I didn't. As a result, I think I just belt this one. I end up in the sand just in front of that rough. So I'm just going to talk over this kind of disaster of a hole. So gone from top of the leaderboard to most likely bottom after this one. But yeah, so if you see me play a 3-wood, you try the same shot and hit the tree, don't blame me. It's going to happen. Reason being, unless you've got exactly the same amount of stats as me, you're going to get different results. The flight of your ball is going to be different. So it's very difficult for me to say, yep, all you need to do is hit this 12 yards to the right with a 2-wood, and you'll end up in the same position as me, because you won't. So there's no answer other than the practice fields and experience for that type of thing. So desperately trying to struggle and get away with, what's that going to be? That's my 6th shot. So if I manage to get a 7, I'll be quite pleased. Tricky putt there, actually. No guides, no items, so managed to nail that. So damage limitation, as I mentioned in the practice fields video, that's a lot of this, and I didn't limit the damage very well on this hole. If I played it safe, I could have drawn it around that tree. Worst case scenario, I would have got a par and been 3 shots better off than I am now. Hopefully would have got, it's usually a fairly birdieable hole, if that's a word, a hole that's easy enough to birdie. Stammer's going for the chip, and he's missed it. So yeah, it's not a game that, well, I mean, it's a good thing, I suppose, because you asked me 2 years ago, I knew all the courses inside out. I knew exactly what shot I was going to play on every course. But then all of a sudden now, if I go back and revisit those same courses and I try and play the same sorts of shots I was playing on the videos that are on my on my channel from a year or two ago, I wouldn't get anywhere, because my stats are so different. You'll notice I was actually timed out there, which means I'm not bottom after that disaster, which is, I've actually limited the damage somewhat, and nobody's taken real advantage of it. So I'm only 3 shots off the lead, but down at second bottom, or we'll say 4th, that sounds better. So I'm having a look here to see if I can actually reach the green almost. So that's 579 yards with a power shot. Ludicrous distances, but I still can't make that albatross. No doubt some people might already be able to, or if not, very soon they'll be able to do so. That'll essentially mean that a perfect round here would be 17 under. I can guarantee you that this round will not be anywhere near that for any of us. But if we had items on, putting guides, etc., you'd probably see a couple getting double figures. I think I might have had a 13. I've certainly had a 12 under here once or twice. But yeah, it's going to take a while until you start seeing those really big scores coming up. When it'll happen will be when it's on the tour, which it might well have been already. I've been in a lower tour the past couple of weeks, and that's when people will really spend time kind of dissecting the course and working out ways around it, whatever the shot. So this one here, I'm just seeing if I can backspin it in. I can't. It's just a bit too short. So what I've done is actually, rather than a high shot, which might have been the other option, I'm playing a power shot here, which you'll see me do on a few of my other videos as well. Reason being, the 9 iron is going to have plenty loft, or it should do. So it's not going to be that difficult to control. So it's a better option really than the high shot. And what I've done is I'm just trying to clip the front of the fairway at the front of the green, which I just managed to do, and you'll notice it stopped pretty dead there. I could have afforded it to go a little bit further left, but I'm fairly happy with that as an approach. So with my opponents above me, certainly the leader there, David's got a birdie, as has Paul. We'll see how Moriarty does. So I certainly picked up a shot on a couple of the guys there. Moriarty's played it different. He went for the big drive, and he's just gone for the short sand wedge in, which has worked quite well for him. I've tried that before and I didn't have such success, so I'm not sure. He might have quite different stats from me. So yeah, he's using the stripy balls, which don't give you as much distance, therefore you can play a fuller shot. So an eagle for Moriarty means I'm not picking up any shots on him, but have on the other two, and certainly have on poor Stammers there, who's nailed another double bogey. And yeah, another predict the future job. This is a very interesting one actually, and this is one where in the past, the practice fields you could go on, you could set whatever winds you wanted on whatever course, and it would make planning shots like this so much easier. It's a tricky one because you'll notice the pin's 116 foot down below us, but the pin's not really the target here. The target is the lip of the mountain, which you'll see here. So what I want to be doing is bouncing it right at the end where my cursor is there really, to take the pace off it and drop down onto the green. But you'll notice that is only 60 feet below me. So we've got to avoid that. And I don't manage to do it, which I didn't manage to do it on the practice either. So it's something I need to work on. I suspect if I'd hit this a full sand wedge, I might have just about made it, but even then it might have been a struggle with that 4-yard headwind, because the sand wedge is flying so high, so lofted, it's really taking a battering from the wind, and you'll see I come up way short here when I eventually hit it. So yeah, I mean, but the practice fields, I'm pleased that you can't do that anymore, because they used to be used as a cheating mechanism by a lot of players. No names mentioned, but you would see the same players getting kind of perfect rounds week after week after week in the tour. And what they did was they had a separate device, they call it double devicing, and they would essentially be playing shot number, setting the wind and the pin to exactly the same. Probably not the pin, because it would take too much time. So they'd be doing this in the World Championship, and they would basically set the wind exactly the same as what was in the game, play the shot once or twice to get it exactly right, and then play it on the other device, which obviously made the game a bit of a farce for some time. I had a great whinge about it on the forums. But to be fair, it took them a long time to act. But what they've come up as a resolution, which isn't ideal, we'd all love to have practice fields to kind of nail these shots on. It's definitely a better situation than it was. So yeah, came up short on that shot. I've now managed to get down. Not a bad result from where I was, to be honest. So I've got a chip to lay up and hopefully a tap in par, which Paul's managed a birdie, so I'll be losing a shot on him, but I will pick up one on David and stay level with Moriarty, unless I can put this in, which will require a slice of luck. Oh, I got that look. That's good. That shot there, you'll notice, because I was out the rough, I overpowered it really heavily. So rather than play a rough shot, I played a standard chip shot, and I added around about 30-40% to how I'd normally hit it. So if it was sitting on the fairway, I'll line it up as if it's on the fairway, look at the distance, which I think there was about 12 yards, and I added on a further kind of 4 or 5 yards. It was actually probably a little bit too hard, but when you're chipping it, if it's going to connect with the hole, then it's not too hard. So this one, I'm worried about hitting another leaf, as I managed to do on the third hole, I think it was. You'll notice Paul kind of faded it round there. I've not had much success with a fade here. I think it's quite tricky to get it on the green. So I've decided, in my wisdom, to play a slightly underpowered 2-wood, which actually has worked out okay. Could hit it a little bit harder, but the harder you hit it, the higher it's going to go, and the more likely it's going to catch one of those kind of leaves. To get that right, again, for your stats, if you've got the distance, hit the practice fields. It's the only way to get a specific answer as to whether or not you can play these shots. So you'll notice I was waving my cursor around at the front there. What I was kind of getting at is, because I'm chipping it here, I've got plenty of green in front of me to play with. I don't want to be catching the fringe or the fairway with a chip, because it'll come up way short. But if that pin was a lot shorter, I would be more likely to play a flop here, which will be very, very similar to a chip from this sort of distance, but it'll have a little bit more loft, so it's much more likely that it'll actually make it over that kind of fringe area. So happy enough with that. It should be a fairly safe birdie, and I've managed to pull it back here to only 1 off the lead. Moriarty's slow on the tee there again. Nearly missed that, but it went in nicely. So we can see, you'll notice other players having disasters. It's not just me. It just takes one miscalculation, oh, I thought that was going in for a minute. That's come right back off the pin. And that's actually probably a better result than if it had missed the pin, though, because that was rocketing. That would have been off the back probably. So it's not a bad position to be in retrospect. The pins on Golfstar seem to be kind of like spring-loaded concrete. They're very much, if you hit them, you'll often just go flying right off the green, which is somewhat annoying, you might say. So Moriarty's dropping one as well, which will move me maybe up a place. So from second bottom, have I made it to second top? We'll find out in a moment. So not really due to any great play from me, but just not making any big mistakes. Again, damage limitation. That's what it's all about at this course at the minute. So this one's a very interesting one. You'll notice the arch there. You think you go over it, but you can't. Not from the first tee. Not without going way over the back of the green. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to play an underpowered 9-iron. I wasn't sure about my distances at all, because on the practice I did this with 1,000 less stats than I've got at the moment. I was just guessing. So what I do, I think, is I come up a little bit short. But you'll actually notice, if you have a look when I've lined it up, we'll see people. There's Paul bouncing off it. There's David bouncing off it. It's a really tricky one unless you know exactly what shot you're going to play. It's a lot of crossing your fingers. So I was doing the same here. So I think I decided on 71%, which did get under, as you see. Any harder than that, obviously I did want to hit it harder, because you'll notice I came up way short. But any harder than that, I would have been flirting with clipping the bottom of that arch, and I would have been in a way worse position than I am now. Damage limitation again. So I'm just going to play a bunker shot, and hopefully, again, the 2 par 3s here are both par holes. You'll notice the left 10 there. That's why I'm going way off to the right. I'm using my little toy, which I'd forgotten I'd done, so I've gone way over to the right there. So you'll see I'm going to go a bit further than that. I think I should do anyway. Yeah, because I'm playing on an emulator, it gives me the ability to do stuff like that, which is quite handy actually. So I'm obviously going way past it. I'm struggling a little bit for time here actually, if I remember rightly. I think we'll see the clock start counting down. There we go, 29 seconds. So I'm starting to think, right, because if I put this kind of in not easy putt distance, I could be timing out and getting 3 over, which would obviously be another one that would ruin the round. But I managed to dig it out with 10 seconds remaining, 10-15 seconds. And as you look at the other scores, you'll see a par is a bit of a result, which it often is on this hole. There's a couple of holes where you can quite easily, with a steady par, see yourself jump up quite a few places. So after 7, on the 8th, no great scores going on. 3 under without any items isn't great. If you take away, I guess, that one disaster hole, then you're probably looking at maybe 6 under at this point, which wouldn't be too bad, presuming I can get a birdie, maybe an eagle on the last, which is a par 5. So what I'm doing here is I'm just playing a full 3-wood. It's a lot more lofted club. If I was aiming there with a driver, that would be kind of landing roughly where the bunkers are in front. But the 3-wood's going to travel much more lofted. It's a slight tailwind, which means it's what I'm hoping is it'll land roughly where my dot is there that I scratched on there earlier. That's kind of what I want. It's probably going to fly a bit further than that. It'll normally pitch with a 3-wood in this way, roughly where the cursor is over this sort of distance. So I'm going to land it kind of in front of the pin, basically. Yeah, so I was kind of hoping if that had actually been pitched further forward a little bit, because there's quite a steep slope, it might have just kicked up and just held. But when you look at that, it's if you're going to put this chip in, you're going to be lucky. So all I'm thinking about here is getting it close enough so I can get the comfortable birdie, which David Allen's already managed to do. I think I'll take a bit of time on this one just to get it right, because it could be a little bit too short. You don't want that horrible little downhill sloping putt, but equally you don't want to go too far past it, but that's fine. Again, when you're chipping, a lot of the time you're not really thinking, on this course anyway, you're not really thinking about putting it in. You're just thinking about, right, when I miss it, where's it going to end up? Am I going to be able to hold the next putt? Again, damage limitation. So yeah, managed to make it back up to the top after that disaster on the 3rd. Couple of shots to spare. So barring disasters here on the last, which have been known to happen, we should see, hopefully, I'll come top of this auspicious Goodwill game, which nobody really cares about. But hopefully it's been useful it's nice, I think, to actually play around rather than just dissect the holes hole by hole. Because you can see, different winds being thrown at us, having to think in a shorter period of time. I can't kind of just pause the video, plan it out, and show you the perfect shot, which I used to do a lot with the practice ones. I thought would be quite valuable, and I think it is. You can see kind of what's possible, but equally, I think it's good to see a real life game in action. I'll be doing a lot more of these just because it's loads easier for me, and it's a lot less likely I'll get definitely bored with it like I did with the with those kind of practice videos. So it's left me a shot out of the rough, which was deliberate. I would prefer to be in the rough there than on the fairway. If I was on the fairway, I would have had about 100-yard sand wedge, which is really difficult to control. A sand wedge out of the rough, if I hit it where it is there, it's going to be catching that kind of rock, or perhaps the rough just in front of the green. And it's a lot, this shot's a lot easier than if I left myself on the fairway, which sounds a bit backwards, but that's Golfstar for you. That looks about right. So, yep, happy enough with that. Next left is a tricky eagle putt. No guide, so line it up, hope for the best, and hit it. I'll always be every kind of notch with this putter would be +5, so I've gone as if it was about 7 or 8 past, nice and hard, and that's gone in. So not too bad around other than that one hole, to be honest. Obviously that one disaster hole, but it goes to show you what can happen at this course, and why you're always best, really, especially in a competitive game at the moment, erring on the side of caution. In a month or two, as more people have played it and more people have perfected it, you'll start seeing the scores creeping up. But you can usually, I played a couple of World Championship games here, and that score, even with guides, would probably win it most of the time, or you'd certainly be in the top 3. You do see some monster rounds, but not as many as you do on the other courses. So thank you very much for watching, and it's again a format that I'll be kind of following a lot more. If any of you are keen players, you've got plenty stats and you want to kind of get involved, let me know. I'd love to maybe do some invitational games and get a few of the community members involved. But thanks again for watching. Speak to you soon.